Hello and welcome to Chess Book Reviews 150. Haven't done one of these for a while. Before I forget, please like and subscribe because they've started up a new group for me. So this is the third time this has happened, but there's nothing wrong with that. But you'll be missing out if you don't join again, and you'll become disillusioned if you think you're already a member, but it turns out you're not. Two books to show you, both from the 1970s. This is in beautiful condition, but I'm afraid that's as far as my high praise goes. It's a Batsford, and it came blowing across from the Atlantic, or rather it came blowing across the Atlantic. The book begins with early greats, Ruy Lopez, Philidor and Chigorin, with claims of Staunton, Morphin, Anderson to the title. In other words, world chess champion. This book was published just a little over 50 years ago. Still comes up bright and breezy, but begins by talking about Zukertort and gives some history. I dare say there's more detailed books having been written before, during and after, but you must understand this is written to catch the tide of the Fischer-Spassky match. It's called In the Beginning. And here we are. Single columns and English descriptive notation, which I know is not very popular nowadays, and it wasn't universally used then, but the fact remains it's okay. I always say that, I know, but it is true. Here we have the text, which is a little bit small for these old eyes, but you may be able to cope a lot better. And there's Morphy playing Anderson in the center counter. And Anderson takes with the queen and then plays pawn to king 4, re5, to get equality and some purchase in the center. Chapter on Steinitz, calling him William in the chapter heading. The longer I live, the more interested in Steinitz I become. And Tim Harding, thank you for your book. Steinitz in battle with Zukertort. And then we switch across to talking about Lasker in battles with Tarrasch. I think Tarrasch never played at his best in match play against Lasker. Either he got too nervous, or he didn't prepare properly, or he was just unlucky. I think Tarrasch could have given Lasker one hell of a run for his money, but he simply didn't. And here we have Lasker playing Capablanca, which is, in the end, they did play for the world title, didn't they? Lasker played a clever move. He resigned the title before the contest took place in Havana and contested it as a challenger. Not sure nowadays if you could do that. I don't think I care one way or the other, but Lasker did it. He was an old dog. Believe you me, Capablanca was under no illusions that it was going to be a walkover. Although he did win convincingly. The scoreline will tell you that. There's an interesting position. I've been looking at quite a few endings recently. But here's one I didn't look at. See that? Alekhine is black, over is white. Over has 4 pawns altogether and 1 on the queen side. Alekhine or split forces. You can imagine how it can. Hanging on for dear life as he did. Games by the Soviet masters coming in, as this is quite a comprehensive coverage. Tao playing Smyslov. Fischer battles with Philip, the Czech Grandmaster Philip. Or a Spassky in the advent of Bobby Fischer, which obviously to Americans had much greater impact than it might have had here, although it had enormous impact here, chess-wise. Bobby saying that the Russians have fixed the chess world. They certainly monopolised it, didn't they? And finally, Bobby beating Boris. And honourably so. And don't let anybody tell you differently. There we are. The book has, coming up for 300 pages, 291. It has an index of openings, index of players, and tournaments. So it's got 3 indexes. As I say, it's only a very, very average book, in my opinion, but you may like it more. There it is. Now, the last book I have to show you I should explain that money was put together for a match. Let's have a little drink. Between Fischer and Karpov. I think I'm right in saying, and they weren't able to spend it as they would have wished. And so instead of going down the pub, they organised a tournament. Up there is my old chess parrot logo. You'll see the parrot's head and the pawn in his mouth. And there, if you can focus on it, is the label for the late British champion, Mr. Brian Ely from Rotherham. This is a Pergamon Press book and published by Robert Maxwell's company from Oxford. There's Karpov looking animated with Tao. And this is a translation by Ken Neat. Ken was one of the most respected translators, such as Peter Clark and Bernard Cafferty, on a level with them. We are talking top stuff. Not everybody will appreciate the fact that because they had to get it out quickly, because in the interest of topicality, the text is typing better. Here's Karpov. I actually took this book, you'll see in a minute, to Phillips and Drew in 1982 and put it down on his table and was quite literally dragged away because the clocks had started and he wouldn't sign my book. He wouldn't sign this book, well, 40 years on. Here's Portish, who did sign in green at the top. There we are. And his tournament record, which I haven't checked, but I'm sure it's suitably confident. And here's Lebojevic, a much more erratic player than Portish, but at his best, a tiger. Here's Spassky, signature. Boris had grown his hair by then. He had a new wife, I think. That possibly was her idea. And here's Timman, the Dutchman Jan Timman, who was to become the #2 player in the world for a short while. The fruits of many, many silent evenings and nights of burning midnight oil. And here's Faswell Hort, who has died recently, hasn't he? With his signature again, which I got. There we are. So that's pretty good, all those signatures, and I'm very proud of this book. Here's Robert Hubner, who also has died recently. He was an academic, also a man of brilliant linguistic ability. And there he is. Without thinking very deeply about his moves. And here's Kavalek, who was the supposed bunny of the tournament, but in fact he didn't come last. And here's Bent Larsen, who did come last. And I didn't get him to sign my book. I did see him in a room with Nigel Short in 1986. And they were the only two people in there. I didn't intrude. I just opened a little crack in the door. And I saw them going through their game. And I'm sure if I'd gone in and asked Larsen's permission, he would have signed my book. But I didn't. I didn't have the nerve. Anyway, here's the introduction to the Montreal diary. It's by Rochelle, who is the player who used to write Karpov's books for him, Korchnoi, what I'm saying. And gives a little background, probably talking about Larsen and his habits. It must be admitted that spectators did not expect that Tal and Karpov could have a genuine duel. I know for a fact that Karpov was falling behind in the tournament, and Tal received a telephone call from USSR to say from home, slow up. Because Karpov was not able to keep pace with him. I think somebody said that recently the candidates were in Canada, and they said that this has never happened before, never been a tournament. Oh, yes, it has. What do you think this is? There's an interview with Karpov. Every time I aim only for first place, it says. Thank you, Anatoly. And then an interview with Tal. So we've gone through 33 pages, 37 pages. Let me show you, because I mentioned it earlier, what the fonts are like. It's like old-fashioned typing. It's quite adequate. It's quite adequate. Well, having shown you the signatures, having shown you the photographs, here's a sort of assessment done on time scale and plotted on a graph for the games. I'm not really convinced anything particularly comes out of this. Sometimes people go fast because they want to look clever. Some people go fast because they know no other way. Sometimes people go fast because they're short of time and they haven't been going fast, and now they have to speed up. And here's the round by round scores. I might call those cumulative. There we are. For once you can read that. And poor old Larson coming last. It merits reflection. This is 10 of the strongest players of all time. And the average ELO was 2,622. Now, most of the spectators got ELOs higher than that. We live in an inflationary age. Ladies and gentlemen, an inflationary age. Well, there's 5 games every round and 18 rounds. So there were 90 games. Yes, there were. And the last game in here is Hubner Lebojevic with notes by Murray Chandler. And it was a draw, and I'd no doubt the players were enormously relieved that the tournament was over and they were able to go home. It's one of the strongest tournaments in the history of chess, and it produced many absorbing games of the highest quality. This book contains all the games played in the tournament, many of which have annotated in great depth. Each round is introduced by Mikhail Tal, and the book also contains interviews with the winners, Karpov and Tal, as well as background information and photographs of the players. There it is, a little gem. If you see it around, and I remember buying it in hardback, which I didn't have to do, but I did. Give it your time, as I always say. This has been Chess Book Reviews 150. Please like and subscribe down below. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.